is Monday, August 31. Welcome to CGN News. Baldwin Spencer, former Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, has reportedly turned down an offer of knighthood. He would have received it on November 1 during this year's independence celebrations. In a statement issued after the weekly cabinet meeting, Prime Minister Gaston Brown had started discussions within the cabinet to award Spencer a knighthood. However, Spencer, who is now 71, reportedly told the Observer Media Group that he will not be accepting the award. The former PM, who was the first political leader of the main opposition United People's Progressive UPP, was first elected in 1989. He won 5 consecutive elections and served until 2018. Spencer said he was in the process of communicating his position officially to the government. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley on the weekend urged Trinidadians to wear masks as the government announced that all the recent measures to curb the significant spread of the coronavirus remain in place. Rowley told a news conference that effective today, Monday, the wearing of the mask would become mandatory. Persons can face a fine of 1,000 Trinidad and Tobago dollars for the first offense and up to 5,000 TT dollars for a third offense. The virus has so far infected 1,577 people and killed 19 since the first case was detected in March this year. The Prime Minister said the government would continue to be guided by the Office of the Chief Medical Officer. With Jamaica experiencing a big spike in COVID-19 cases, tourists are now cancelling their short-term bookings as well as their vacations. On Sunday, there was a record 245 new cases, increasing the total to 2,357. Commenting on the cancellation, Chris Jarrett, president of the Kingston chapter of the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, told the Jamaica Gleaner in an interview that the revitalization of travel to Kingston continues to be a challenge. Jarrett said most properties in the city are currently operating at about 10 to 15% occupancy levels, and they just lost a booking for 93 rooms in Montego Bay due to the virus spike. Claremont Mingo, returning officer of Guyana's March 2, 2020 general and regional elections, has been slapped with 4 charges in relation to his attempts to rig the election. Mingo and several other election officials were taken into custody over the past week as police investigate allegations of electoral fraud. He has been accused of attempting to alter the results of the election in favor of the APNU-AFC coalition by using concocted figures during the tabulation of votes for Region 4, the country's largest voting district. According to an iNews report, Mingo will be arraigned before the court today. Overseas now, a French right-wing magazine has been criticized for depicting a black socialist MP, Danielle Obono, as a slave. The article in Valeurs Actuelles accused Africans of colluding in slavery and had a sketch of Miss Obono with an iron collar around her neck. Prime Minister Jean Castex said it was a revolting publication, while President Emmanuel Macron reportedly called Obono and expressed his clear condemnation of any form of racism. The magazine apologized to Obono but denied the article was racist. Obono, born in Gabon, represents a Paris constituency. She tweeted the image with the words, "The far right, odious, stupid, and cruel. This image is an insult to my ancestors, my family, and my political movement," she said, adding she was more determined than ever to fight against racism for liberty, equality, and fraternity, repeating the most famous slogan of the French Revolution. The United States now has almost 6 million confirmed cases of the coronavirus, but experts say that up to 90% of people tested in Massachusetts, New York, and Nevada in July carried barely any traces of the virus. Health experts say PCR testing, the most widely used diagnostic test for COVID-19 in the U.S., is too sensitive and needs to be adjusted to rule out people who have insignificant amounts of the virus in their systems because they're likely not contagious. The PCR test, which provides a yes or no answer if a patient is infected, doesn't say how much of the virus a patient has in their body, according to the New York Times. Last Monday, the CDC changed its guidelines, which now say that if you were exposed but don't have symptoms, You do not necessarily need a test unless you are a vulnerable individual or a doctor advises it. Previously, the agency had recommended getting tested after any close contact with someone who was confirmed infected with COVID-19. Tens of thousands of people protested Saturday in Mauritius over the government's slow response to an oil spill from a grounded Japanese ship and the alarming discovery of dozens of dead dolphins in recent days. Outraged over the Indian Ocean island nation's worst environmental disaster in years, protesters displayed signs such as "You have no shame" and "I've seen better cabinets at IKEA." In action, one protester scrawled on an inflatable dolphin held above the crowd. They marched peacefully through the capital, Port Louis, a month after the ship struck a coral reef a mile offshore. It later cracked under the pounding surf and split around 1,000 tons of fuel oil into fragile marine areas. A statue of Canada's first Prime Minister, Sir John Macdonald, was toppled in downtown Montreal by protesters marching in support of defunding the police, government officials have said. The incident occurred at the end of a peaceful march on Saturday when a group of people climbed the monument and pulled down the statue, causing the head to fly off. Video footage posted on social media showed. Calls to defund the police have been growing across the United States and Canada in recent months after a spate of violent incidents involving the police. Some foreign journalists on assignment in Belarus have been deported, while local reporters' accreditation have been withdrawn, preventing them from covering large anti-government protests. Thousands of people have taken to the streets in recent weeks, rejecting President Alexander Lukashenko's landslide victory in the August 9 vote, which opponents say were rigged. Several people have been killed and hundreds more wounded during a violent police crackdown, with thousands of protesters detained. Commenting on the action taken against the journalist, BBC said they condemned in the strongest possible terms the stifling of independent journalism. A well-known Russian opposition blogger and radio host was beaten outside his home in Moscow on Sunday, his spokesman said. Yegor Zhukov, 22, was handed a suspended sentence last year on extremism charges for making videos criticizing President Vladimir Putin amid huge protests calling for fair elections. Earlier on Sunday, Zhukov, a political science major, said he had been excluded from a master's degree course at the prestigious Higher School of Economics in Moscow on orders from the authorities. Members of Russia's opposition have complained of a growing number of attacks and punitive legal cases against Kremlin critics following a vote on changes to the constitution that allow Putin to extend his rule. Opposition leader Alexei Navalny is being treated in a hospital in Berlin for a suspected poisoning, and his allies hold Putin ultimately responsible. That's it for CGN News. I'm Scott Wilson. Thanks for watching.